Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, our listening public, our students, our followers. Thank you for following. We like to welcome you today again to our next section. Yes, Tuesday we had a problem. We had a problem Tuesday with the broadcast simply because the internet, the network system. So the materials that we introduced at the time, we will still reintroduce them today for clarity and better understanding. We had a network fluctuating at the same time, I don't know because of weather or so or the connection, but I think it was basically the internet and some technical details that we're not aware about. So we'll still continue. We just start again today with the subject Introduction to the Criminal Justice System, specifically Introduction to Criminal Justice. So you will see that the first video we had, you might likely delete that, and then this will suffice. By introduction, like you are told, that by introduction, I'm Arthur Johnson. I have taught criminal justice science, law enforcement administration, criminology, criminal law, constitutional law at the AME Zion University, criminal procedure. I've been teaching for 26 years, as I said the last time. And this is my passion. This is something that I really love next to my legal practice. 26 years I've been teaching. I have explicit control over certain subjects, specifically in the area of law, in the area of criminal justice, public administration. I used to love public administration, so I decided, I taught public administration also at the University of Liberia for 9 years before I left and decided to focus my attention on the criminal justice system at the Zion University. So I have a PhD in legal studies with cum laude from the Atlantic International University in Honolulu, the USA. I have a Master's of Arts degree in in international relations and diplomacy. I earned a law degree. I have a master's degree in law from the James E. Beasley School of Law, Temple University in Philadelphia. My specialization is in advanced litigation and trial advocacy. Basically, this area of discipline has to do with the expertise to be able to train lawyers, the science of the practice, legal practice in the courtroom. That is what the particular subject is about. I have a Master of Philosophy in Criminal Justice from Wharton. My specialty is criminal justice law and public policy. I'm presently writing my dissertation, of course, in the criminal justice. And I have a Master in Public Administration, the Master of Arts in International Relations. That was my first master's from Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida School of International Relations, University of Liberia. I have a Master of Arts in International Relations, Master of Arts in Peace and Conflict Studies, or Peace Studies and Conflict Transformation from the Kofi Annan University of Liberia. A Master's in Public Administration. I have a law degree, Bachelor of Laws from the Louis Arthur School of Law, Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice, BSc with distinction cum laude from the AME Zion University. I'm an assistant professor of law, specifically criminal law and criminal procedure law at the Louis Arthur School of Law, and presently the Dean of the Graduate School of Criminal Justice at the AME Zion University. So I have 26 years experience in this. This is my passion, the teaching profession. So we begin today with the subject, Introduction to Criminal Justice, specifically the definition of criminal justice. When we talk about the definition of criminal justice, like I told you, It means we are talking about the etiology of crime causation. We are talking about the social processes of the criminal justice system. We are also talking about the what we call social agencies that have been established to control crime. When you grasp the definition of criminal justice, you will understand that it covers the scientific aspect of criminal justice that deals with the etiology of crime causation, which we call criminology. And then you have what we call, the last time I was talking fast, so I think I have to take my time. So, yeah. And then we have the aspect of the definition, the other phrase that talks about, as well as analysis of the formal processes. When we talk about the analysis of the formal processes, it means the procedure. For criminal justice students, we call it the criminal justice highway. The science and the study that deals with the criminal procedure. So sometimes in law, specifically criminal law, we call it the criminal procedure. The criminal procedural law is the law that spells out the procedural steps required in the adjudication process relating to a criminal offense when a person had committed an offense. So, criminal justice is defined as the field of study that deals with the nature of crime in society, as well as analysis of the formal processes and those social agencies that have been established to control crime. When we say that, you will see the definition has three components. The nature of crime that has to do with criminology. Nature of crime means the aspect of the criminal justice studies that focuses on the scientific study of crime, the etiology of crime causation, the factors responsible for criminal behavior. Why people commit crimes? Why? There are reasons why people commit crimes. The branch of criminal justice that explains why people commit crimes is called criminology. So when you hear we say the definition says the nature of crime in society, it is talking about criminology, the etiology of crime causation. And in that area, you will understand that there are three major causes of crime. And those three major causes of crime are called biological, psychological, and sociological. Biological, I will come down and explain all of them. The next aspect of the definition of criminal justice, which you need to know, it has to be as, you got to have it as a working knowledge. This definition, you must know it. As a student of criminal justice, you need to know it. It is required you know it. It is required you understand it. As a criminal justice practitioner who works in a law enforcement institution, the correctional institution, or the court institution, you are required to have this definition as a working knowledge. Because it explains to you, it exposes the entire structure in the system of the criminal justice. The next aspect of the definition is the analysis of the formal processes. What does that mean? When we say the analysis of the formal processes, we are talking about the criminal justice process. From the day the crime is committed, or from the day the crime was committed, up to the time the person is arrested, what should be done to them, how you do it, is all defined by law, which we call the criminal procedure law. When he's taken to court, what is required regarding his rights, everything, is also defined in what we call the criminal procedure law. When he is adjudicated, in other words, when he is tried by a court of competent jurisdiction, meaning a criminal court that has the authority to try him, that particular person, there is a step, or there are steps that must be followed. Even the judges, the prosecutors, the lawyers representing them, the defendants are required to follow the steps defined in the law. And that law that sets the rules regarding the steps in the criminal trial, that law is called the criminal procedure law. For Liberia, we call it the criminal procedure law. In many jurisdictions, they have it too as a criminal procedure law. In the Great United States, it's also regarded as a criminal procedure law. It is different from the civil procedure law. You know that there are the two justice systems, the civil procedure, the civil justice system, and the criminal justice system. They are distinct. The one we get, civil law code, that is civil justice system. The one we have sending the man to court for the crime he committed is the criminal justice system. And so, all of those steps, when the person goes to the Supreme Court affirms his conviction, meaning when he been found guilty by a court of competent jurisdiction. What is required? He's sent to prison. He's sent to prison. The time he said that there is a law, that same law, the criminal procedure law, it regulates what needs to be done to the person while the person is serving his term in prison. So all of that, the study that has to do with understanding the nature and the context of that procedural law is what we call the analysis of the formal processes and the suit. Because it is about studying the procedure. So people can specialize, say, look, I'm doing criminal justice with emphasis in criminal procedure. In other developed societies, that is what they do. So the next phase of the definition of criminal procedure, of criminal justice, is called the social agencies. Those social agencies that have been established to control crime. In the criminal justice system, when we speak of the social agencies, it means the three major components of the criminal justice system. The three major components of the criminal justice system are the police, the courts, and the corrections. The police is the import component of the criminal justice system. It is the one that is responsible to introduce and bring into the system persons accused of criminal offenses. The police is the one that conducts investigation to determine that the person who has been accused of the crime, there are evidence within their possession to prove in a court of law that that person committed the offense. There is a whole bunch of study regarding that particular process, criminal investigation. All throughout that process, the investigative practices of the law enforcement institution are regulated by the criminal procedure law. And in order to understand that, you must understand what is the criminal justice process. That was called the criminal justice highway. The next component of the criminal justice system is the court. The court component is responsible, specifically the criminal courts, to conduct trials, to decide and to establish whether or not the allegations made against a person by the police in a court of competent jurisdiction have any evidence to prove the person's guilt. And when the person is being tried, all of the rights that the person has under the law to protect them, the court will observe them in the criminal justice system. So when you do criminal justice, you will have an understanding of all of these workings. And so you will not just talk, but you will talk as a professional because you understand how the system works. Because you may be also a practitioner. Since that is what the criminal justice definition is, let's proceed to the next stage of the slide that has to do with the nature of crime in society. The nature of crime in society means the etiology of crime causation, the scientific study of crime. If you have a first degree in criminal justice and decide, you say, look, I want to advance and to specialize. I want to specialize. You can choose, you say, look, I want to be a criminologist. This is specifically what it's all about. There are those who can say, yeah, I want to do criminology. I want to specialize in the biogenic. I want to be a biogenic. Biogenic theory. I want to be a biocriminologist. I want to be a psychocriminologist. I want to be a biosocial criminologist or social criminologist. This is the area. We stay analyzing the nature of crime in society. So under the scientific study of crime, there are three major factors responsible for criminal behavior. Three. The school of thought that explains those factors. The reason you hear that we say factors responsible is because most of the crimes that are committed, according to criminology, those who commit crimes are not responsible for their criminal conduct simply because there are factors that influence their behavior. And some of these factors are dominating to the extent that the individual criminal is unable to resist the temptation for the commission of a criminal offense. So scholars decided to study why people commit crimes. And the first approach people started with was the positivist. Cesar Lombroso, the father of the positivist school, the biological school of thought in criminology. He was the first to say, no, criminal behavior is the result of biological processes and functions. Even though majority of his explanations and his reasons for identifying criminal behavior have been discarded because they have been disproven. They have been disproven by some empirical studies. But majority is also a portion of his views are acceptable standards in the study of criminology. For example, let's look at diminished responsibility, biological factor, neurological factor, postnatal experience. I will explain that. Neurological factor is that some people are born as criminals because of genetic inheritance from the criminal parent. That argument is still to some extent acceptable in psychocriminology. It's also acceptable in criminology or criminal psychology. The only view about that particular argument is that it is not 100%, but it is an influence. Because there is a tendency for people to develop and inherit the genes of their ancestors and their people. They also said some of the reasons people commit crimes is because of the biological makeup of the person. The human physiology has an impact on the behavior and conduct of the individual. That was the argument. That was the theory. And that is why, let me zoom in for you. You see that The biological causes of crime based on the biogenic explanation have been influenced to the extent that they say, look, those biological factors could be the biological, that could be the genetic defects, the endocrine abnormalities. And they said during those days, you could identify the criminal. They say the criminal get big nose, big jaw, big hair, long hands, long feet. That was their argument. The people like Sheldon. But as time went by, that theory could not hold. But portion of this theory holds in that if you look at our criminal law, many criminal laws in the world, in the federal criminal justice system of the world today, there is a portion, a provision in the criminal law that has to do with justification and excuses. There are conditions under the criminal law that when you commit a crime, you are held liable for the act that you have committed. But you may not be held liable if certain factors were responsible. And then one of those factors they talk about is biology. And what is that biology we're talking about? Insanity, for example. A person who suffers from insanity is unable to conceptualize between right and wrong. A person who commits a crime that suffers from genetic defects and that leads that particular person to the condition of being incapacitated to understand the consequences of his or her actions, the law will excuse that particular person from criminal punishment simply because they were unable to have the mental intent, the mental capacity, and the reason to conceptualize why they committed the crime. So that is biogenic. The second condition on why people commit crime is the psychogenic theory explanation. The psychogenic theory explains the psychological factors responsible for crime. And the father of this argument is Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud was the father of psychoanalysis, or is the father of psychoanalysis. Sigmund Freud is the first scholar to link criminal behavior to psychology. He said the moral intellectual development of a person has impact on the psychology and the mental makeup of the person. The way the person was brought out in understanding the respect for the norms and the laws of society has a tendency to influence the person in becoming whether or not they are a criminal. So the second factor responsible for crime, we still analyzing the definition of criminal justice, is the psychological factor. The third factor responsible for crime is called the sociogenic factor. Under the sociogenic factor, which explains the sociological causes of crime, it gives two component explanations. The first component is the social structure, and the second component is the social process. The first component under the sociological explanation for criminal behavior, which we call the social structure, is about the social institutions of society. These social institutions in society, according to the social structure theories, because there are so many theories, they say all of these institutions, if they are defective or they are dysfunctional, meaning they are not effective, they lack the capacity to play their role in society, there will be a problem in society. So in the social structure, it means the social institutions, the political, the economic institution, the familial institution, meaning the family, the educational institution, meaning the school system, the learning system, and the religious institution. They said the two institutions basically that champion the cause are the political and economic institutions. When these two institutions are dysfunctional, the first institution that gets affected is the family. When the political structure fails to meet with the social contract of society, in other words, not to support the economic basis of the demands of the people, the first institution that gets affected is the family. How does the family get affected? When the political and economic are at variance, you have poverty. When there is no job, you have poverty. When there is no investment climate, you have poverty. When there is no opportunity for people to improve their standard of living, then you have problems in society. You have social problems. And the question is, what is social problem? Social problems are those conditions that go unaddressed for a long period of time, that affect individuals and collective goals, and require collective actions to address them. And so when you are unable to address these social conditions, they become social problems. And social problems are poverty, unemployment, prostitution, crime, juvenile delinquency, and so many other problems, drug abuse, and what have you. So how is the family affected? Let's start with the unemployment. When the father is unable to get job, he cannot feed a home. He has control. He lacks control, He lacks control over the children. So he cannot discipline the children in line with the acceptable norms of society. He cannot call them to order when they engage in deviant behavior. Because children are most likely to respect their parents when their needs are met. And so, the father who used to tell his children to go to bed 8 o'clock in the night, he does not have that authority again, because the child says, I'm hungry, why going? I want to sleep. Then the mother is there. If the mother is not a person who believes strongly in the social norms of society, will start pushing the daughter to win bread, and at the same time comparing the daughter with other children in the community. Say, your friends are over there feeding their homes. BB cars coming to your sister, your friend in the community. Only you are behind these small boys then. Try to feed us. So the girl now is being encouraged at the age of 14 or 15 into a teenage prostitution. So she starts to get boyfriend. The one that will buy the scratch car. The one that will buy the food. The one that will get the food money. The other boyfriend that can give the one the rent money. So you see that child is being exposed to having more than 4, 5, 6 boyfriends. Simply because of the variance between the political and economic institution, where the family is the first component affected. The father now, who used to tell his children, go to bed at 9 or 8, is the one that will be asked to open the door 2 o'clock for his daughter who comes from winning bread. So that daughter is not growing the way she's supposed to grow as a decent person. Then the boy sees that. The boy gets frustrated. He too, he wants respect because he's not a breadwinner. The little sister starts to disrespect him. He might like to follow friends that are armed robbers because he wants to win bread. So that is how the family is affected when there is a variance in these institutions. Social structure. Now look at the social process theories. There is this scholar this scholar practitioner in the criminal justice system, specifically in criminology. Look at Emmett Durkheim. Emmett Durkheim was a scholar who said, a philosopher who argued and said, I know many of you who are not practitioners will say, but what kind of man is that? He said, criminal behavior is a necessary social behavior. Are you? Emmett Durkheim behavior is right for society to experience. No. He was saying that criminal behavior is a necessary social behavior. And what does that mean? There is something in law, specifically in criminal law, we call quod necessita cujet defendi. That's a Latin phrase, that clause. It says that which necessity compels, it justifies. A necessary condition exists out of desperation based on a particular condition that there is no way out. So Emmett Durkheim was saying the people who commit crimes, who we call the criminals, are not the real culprit of criminal behavior. Society is the one that creates the conditions for people to be criminals. That was Emmett Durkheim's theory. So that is the rationale behind Durkheim's argument that criminal behavior is a necessary social behavior, not a right behavior. There are other scholars who say, look, criminal behavior is a result of stigma. When a man is labeled as a criminal in the community, and he went to jail, and he was rehabilitated, and he becomes a chief person, he learned trade in the prison institution, he becomes a professional carpenter. He comes into the community, instead of society to accept him, society ostracizes him. Because why? He is stigmatized. He has on him what we call the ex-convict stigma. In criminology, we call it the criminal gold chain, or we call it the gold chain syndrome. Now, under the gold chain syndrome, if this guy comes to you and say, look, I can prepare bail for you, I can face your bail, I can roof your head, chief, I can roof your house, chief. If you have your house that is leaking, call me, I can do the work. But you're going to say, no, I'm not going to deal with this guy. That guy is a criminal. Forgetting to know that if that guy is a changed person, this ex-convict, who is now somebody that should be accepted by the community, that if he has given his contract and he does this work and he is paid, he will not be encouraged to go and engage in criminal behavior because he has a profession and a career. But because of the label that we place on him, it pushes him to criminality. So you have people like Frank Tanaban. Frank Tanaban is the father of the theory of labeling. The labeling theory for him, under the social process theory, he said that, look, labeling is a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you label a person, you have stigmatized him, you have ostracized him, you have placed on him a gold chain, and that gold chain is called a criminal gold chain. It is not a physical chain, but it is a stigma that whenever you see that person, you recall and reflect straight to the stigma, and so you can deny him the opportunities, even if you have a job tomorrow. So these are the theories, these are the areas. So these are the social conditions that influence criminal behavior. Let me just slip a bit. Like today, we have our people demonstrating. Let digress a bit. For academic purposes. Wow, for drugs, right? Good. The demonstration is important to fight drugs. But you, as a criminal justice practitioner, that is the first step. Because in order to fight drugs in this country or anywhere in the world, for those of you who are doing drug abuse as a whole, it requires millions of dollars, thousands of millions or millions of dollars of investment. Because you need to know that the guys who are the users that we have in the streets are victims. The users are victims because they are addicts. An addict is not a perpetrator. Addiction means an uncontrollable desire to use something that you cannot stop yourself. You cannot quench that urge from making use of it because you are addicted. So the process of rehabilitating you is not about only putting you in the fence and giving you food to eat and flushing you. There are times when that person is going through the treatment. That person, the withdrawal syndrome, that is where, when you hear somebody takes drugs and later after saying that they say the person went back, that is the withdrawal syndrome. The withdrawal syndrome can come together when you are tested. You want to drink water. So it is a whole science that you need experts who are specialized. The attention should not only be on the children in the street. The next thing is the institution responsible to fight drugs. It needs restructuring with the expertise, with a new direction and the perspective. Let me stop it. So let's go further to our next area. The next one has to do now with crime. What is a crime? This is the last stage, and I'm going to start very quickly. How do we define crime? All the men is a criminal. What is a crime? Crime is not anybody that just commit crime or do this thing or do wrong thing. They say it's not a crime. No, what is a crime? You cannot understand criminal justice if you don't know what a crime is. And so that's why we give you the definition. An act or omission. Crime is not only when you have acted. You can commit a criminal conduct even if you fail to act. That's what we call omission. In violation of the law. For which there are punishments, such as disqualification to hold office, fines, imprisonment, and many others. That's the definition of crime. So let's make use of this particular section today. Unfortunately, the first section did not work well. It was not too clear. So we'll have to stop there. That's why we are reiterating the studies and the lecture. So this is the section 1 now. That stands. We'll be deleting the first one because it was not too clear. The network was a problem. And so continue to join. You can go on the YouTube page, on my YouTube page, try to subscribe. Because basically, as time goes by, that is specifically where I will strategically be in introducing my courses. Because I would love to be interacting with the students. And while we're doing this, then you will be making some comments, asking some questions. Then I can read the questions, and then I will answer. So let's try to go to the YouTube page, and then you subscribe to the page. This particular streaming is done simultaneously. As time goes by, my technician, who is also who is a former criminal justice student, will be helping me for us to synchronize the Instagram page also today. But this thing is done simultaneously. This streaming is done simultaneously with the YouTube page. So please go on the YouTube page and try to subscribe. Let's build this thing. It's my way of giving back. It's my way of giving back. We have a lot of our young people who really need direction. Direction in terms of academics, in the area of their discipline, and where they believe they feel, how they can develop interest in the criminal justice field as a profession. This is a very good field. It's highly respected all over the world, both Europe, America, wherever. You get this particular discipline, even you go in America, you get to cartoon because it's universally respected. The criminal justice profession is an elite profession, as well as the law, even though it is a paralegal profession. So thank you for watching. We will continue. Good day.